Most candidates campaign on promises. I campaign on performance. When I came to New Hampshire as a candidate, I came to serve the people and not just to collect money and collect votes. Ordinary citizens in New Hampshire came to me and asked for help. Here are two of the ways that I've been helping in New Hampshire. First of all, the power brokers in Hartford and Boston and New York want to build a massive power transmission system across the state of New Hampshire. Tourism is one of the major industries in New Hampshire. $1 billion will be spent just this winter in tourism. The Northern Pass proposal would build power lines right across some of New Hampshire's most beautiful scenery. And New Hampshire doesn't need the power. It's there to make profits for people outside the state. New Hampshire actually produces more power than it needs and exports power to other states. And so I marched on foot over 40 miles and biked additional distances, 40 miles across New Hampshire's highways, learning about the states, talking to ordinary citizens, learning about their concerns and the struggles that they have. I'm very proud to have been a leader in the opposition to the Northern Pass proposal. I think it's bad for New Hampshire. An even more tragic situation exists up in the North Country in Dixville Notch. The employees of the Balsams, a great historic 150-year-old hotel, came to me and asked for help. Once again, the power brokers in Boston and Nashua and Manchester wanted to throw the employees out of work, hundreds of jobs. What made this outrageous was that Neil Tillotson, a great inventor and investor and businessman in New Hampshire, had left hundreds of millions of dollars in trust for the North Country. And so what do you suppose I found? The lawyers are helping themselves, the politicians are helping themselves, and they're trying to take jobs away from the little people in the North Country. And they came to me and said, "Andy, please help us." And I'm fighting that. I filed a lawsuit, we've got court hearings scheduled, and we are fighting to see that Neil Tillotson's trust, that Neil Tillotson's generosity, that his vision of helping New Hampshire residents is not violated by the greed of the lawyers in Manchester and Boston and by all the hucksters that are trying to put their hands into Neil Tillotson's trust. Both of these are examples of how my campaign not only became a political operation here in the state of New Hampshire, but became a public service operation, working to help people, working to help workers, working to help residents who are being treated unfairly by the powerful economic interests. I'm that kind of a candidate. No other presidential candidate can even remotely tell you about the highways and byways of New Hampshire because they haven't walked to those roads the way I have. They haven't stopped to talk to people. And they haven't stopped long enough in New Hampshire to fight for the people of New Hampshire, to fight to protect hundreds of working families that are losing their jobs, to protect billions of dollars in tourist income that would be jeopardized. I've been there for the people of New Hampshire, and I've been there over the past 40 years fighting for the people of America when the culture of corruption and greed in Washington and Wall Street was trying to work for them and against ordinary Main Street values. So I don't just campaign on promises. I have a track record. You can go on the internet, you can check my website, and you'll see that I'm there fighting for the people of New Hampshire, fighting for the American people, fighting for you to get a fair shake and a fair deal in Washington. I'm Andy Martin, Republican candidate for president. I'm the only presidential candidate fighting Northern Pass. Northern Pass transmission lines would devastate New Hampshire's environment and destroy property values. I grew up spending summers here. That's why New Hampshire is in my heart. Maybe that's why I'm the only presidential candidate fighting Northern Pass. I'm Andy Martin. I need your vote in the presidential primary to block Northern Pass. And as you can see, I've been one of the leaders in seeking to block the Northern Pass. And likewise, as I said, I've been fighting to save the Balsams and to ensure that 300 New Hampshire workers do not lose their jobs due to greed and trustee violations of fiduciary duties. It's tough work, but then being president is tough. Being in the Oval Office is tough. Standing up for what's right is never easy. And I'm the only presidential candidate that has an actual performance record you can look at and say, he does more for New Hampshire. He'll do more for the American people, for working families and ordinary citizens. That's the basis on which I'm asking for your support. Attention, New Hampshire Republicans. I'm Republican presidential candidate Andy Martin. I approve this message because Barack Obama is giving your tax dollars to failed Muslim states like Pakistan and Afghanistan. We must stop subsidizing Pakistanis who hit Osama bin Laden. We must stop backing the corrupt Karzai regime in Afghanistan. I'm the only presidential candidate who is a foreign policy expert. Go to andymartinforpresident.com to support my campaign. All of the presidential candidates have promised to create jobs and to restart the economy. It's obvious that President Obama's economic policies are not working. Even if there is a slight improvement is not enough when you have millions of new workers every year that need jobs. So we need to work to rebuild the economy that we had and not work to create the economy that Barack Obama would like to see. What does that mean? It means that economic opportunity has to exist everywhere. We've exported millions of jobs to China. Why is that? Because Washington lobbyists have allowed it. When you hear that labor is cheaper, it's not. What happens is that we allow people, sometimes even children, working under slave labor conditions to make products for us. That's not right. It's not right to use slave labor in China to put American workers out of work. So we're going to have to bring these jobs home. We're going to have to rebuild our economy right from the ground up. And we're going to have to stand up to the profiteers. Because make no mistake, Wall Street hucksters and Washington lobbyists have gotten rich exporting our jobs. My promise is a very simple one. Fair trade, not free trade. I'm going to shut down the import machine until every product that enters this country is the result of fair trade. We will not allow products made with slave labor in China to be imported into this country. We're not going to allow China to rig the economic equation in a way that dispossesses Americans and throws them out of jobs. There's a lot of economic activity in this country. There's a lot of work there to be done. And Americans like to work. We're hard-working people. We're people who've built the wealth of this country through the sweat of our brow. And now it's being taken away from us by foreign countries who are paying off Washington lobbyists with book deals and consulting arrangements. It's what they call honest graft. But the net result is that people on Wall Street have profited, lobbyists on K Street have profited, and Americans, ordinary Americans, working Americans on Main Street have lost their jobs and their homes. I'd like to also give you a little bit of a real estate lesson and a real estate reminder. Housing is the backbone of our economy. And why is that? Why haven't we restarted the economy? It's very simple, because real estate and housing have not revived. The housing industry is the backbone because every time somebody buys a new home or remodels an existing home, all kinds of economic activity is triggered. All kinds of jobs are necessary. To build or remodel a home, you need asphalt, you need concrete, you need roofing, you need lumber, you need siding, you need paint, you need drywall, you need floors, you need appliances, you need furniture. All of that economic activity goes into buying or remodeling a house or renting a new home. And a lot of that has been exported overseas. When I walked over 40 miles across the North Country, I could look across the Connecticut River into Vermont, where Vermont jobs had been exported to China. And one of the things that I did during these long walks in New Hampshire was to realize the consequences, the social breakdown that comes when our economy is exported, when families lose their jobs and their homes. It's not tolerable, and it's not American. But at the end of the day, all of the presidential candidates are saying the same things and making the same promises. So how do you distinguish one from the other? I'd like to tell you what I think. I think you look at whether they have a record of fighting, not a record of making promises. There are very consistent conservatives running for president who have proven to be totally ineffective in Congress. There are good conservatives running for president who've profiteered and collected tens of millions of dollars in special interest money. Why would you expect them to change just because they changed their office location? I have a long track record and a history of fighting corruption, fighting special interests, and fighting for ordinary citizens. And that track record can give you confidence that I'm not going to change. I won't be the leopard that changes spots in the Oval Office. I'm going to be there for working families, for ordinary citizens, for moms and dads, for parents struggling with their children's education, struggling with their retirement, struggling to get a fair deal in a tough economy. I'm the only Republican who said we can make Social Security work. There are a lot of people that'll make quick promises, we're going to tear it down, it's no good, it's failed. This is money that we paid into a government program. These are taxes that we paid. These are benefits that we earned. I'm not going to let the politicians take that away from us. Here's an ad that I ran in Iowa talking about exactly this issue. Attention, Iowa Republicans. I'm Republican presidential candidate Andy Martin. I'm the only Republican presidential candidate who supports our great national commitment to Medicare and Social Security. The financial crisis did not begin on Main Street. Wall Street greed began in New York City. If you want a Republican presidential candidate you can trust to provide senior security, go to andymartinforpresident.com to support my campaign.